to order this regular business meeting of the Clackamas County Commission and ask you to join us and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now that we did the Pledge of Allegiance, so we were going to put up our decoration, which is the flag of the country of Mexico, because today is Cinco de Mayo, and so it's a good opportunity to celebrate one of the countries that borders the United States. And we have with us today Emmett Wheatfall, who's our diversity manager, and Ron Guerra, I don't know, say that, who's the chairperson for the county's Diversity Leadership Council. And they're going to give us a brief presentation about Cinco de Mayo, and we'll see if we have any celebrations that you might be able to take part in this weekend.
Good morning. On behalf of the Department of Employee Services, its Director, Nancy Drury, I want to thank you for the opportunity to come and participate in the Commission meeting and share with you about Cinco de Mayo. We also want to thank you for your continuing commitment to diversity as an important organizational value here at Clackamas County. We think we're making progress and having success. Just very quickly, to explain a little bit about the Diversity Leadership Council, we have two councils that we've established here at Clackamas County. One is called the Diversity Advisory Council, and that's made up of a cross-section of employees who advise my office and the Department of Employee Services on how we can make this value proposition of diversity important at Clackamas County. The second is the Diversity Leadership Council, which is made up of community-based citizens who also provide consultation and advisement relative to diversity here at Clackamas County. Ron Guerra is an employment and labor relations attorney. He chairs the Diversity Leadership Council. And I want to tell you, he does an outstanding job. He brings to us a level of professionalism that we think is needed in that particular council. So we invited him here today to share with us a little bit about Cinco de Mayo.
Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity to appear before the county commissioners and to explain a little bit about Cinco de Mayo. I think Cinco de Mayo is truly misunderstood in many ways. It would be interesting to know how many people believe that it is the celebration of the independence of Mexico. If you think that, I'm here to dispel that notion from you. The actual Independence Day for Mexico is September 16th. They came into being as a nation in 1821. And Cinco de Mayo actually is the celebration of the victory of the undermanned, underskilled, smaller Mexican army over the French contingent at the city of Puebla in the state of Puebla, Mexico, that occurred on May 5th, obviously, in 1862. And what's interesting about this battle is that in 1860 or thereabouts, as the U.S. was entering into the Civil War, Benito Juarez, who was the president of Mexico and the father of Mexico, if you will, had suspended all payments on debt to Britain, Spain, and France, who were the three largest foreign creditors who had supported the Mexican economy for a number of years. He suspended payments, and obviously the creditors were wanting to call due the monies, and so they sent their various flotillas, their navies, if you will, to Mexico. The British and the Spaniards reached an agreement with the government of Mexico, and they left. But Napoleon decided that having a beachhead in Mexico would further the interests of France, and decided that he would establish in Mexico a beachhead, and from that point then be able to influence and to continue to support the Confederacy in its battle against the Union, if you will. That obviously didn't work because of the Battle of Puebla. There are varying accounts as to the size of the armies that were involved, but essentially the Mexicans had approximately 4,000 members of their military at that point, at that battle. The French, somewhere between 6,500 and 8,000, clearly much better prepared in terms of armament and training and the like, and yet the Mexicans overcame them and put down and basically sent the French running, literally running for their lives. What's interesting about this is that it has two main significances, if you will. The first is that it was a moral victory, a substantial victory for the Mexican people to be able to stand up and continue as a nation. They were only about 21 years old at that point, or 41 years, excuse me. And they were going through the struggles of any new emerging nation would go through. And the second part is that it established more for those Hispanics and Mexicans and Latinos who were living in the states, for example, in California, in Columbia County, or in Columbia, California during this period of time, is really where the Cinco de Mayo celebration really got its start in the United States. When the Mexicans heard about the victory at Puebla, they had a series of celebrations that occurred, shooting off their rifles and guns and I might say, any excuse for a party, they took it to celebrate that victory. Today, the celebration of Cinco de Mayo is more of an American or U.S. holiday tradition than it is in Mexico. In fact, it's really only celebrated in Puebla, the state of Puebla, Mexico, and not throughout the state. There are limited celebrations of it throughout the nation of Mexico, but in Puebla it is a very big thing. But in the United States, we often stop and have celebrations. And for us, it signifies a recognition, an opportunity to honor, to consider, and to think about the contributions of the Hispanic peoples and their culture as they've affected and helped build this nation. And so we celebrate that today with many different kinds of traditions, dancing, good food, music, and other activities that recognize the contributions to this great nation. Thank you.
Well, that was excellent because that was much more information than I ever knew about Cinco de Mayo. Anyone have any questions or comments? I have one other question, but I'll ask first.
Well, I also agree. Much more information than I ever knew, so I appreciate the opportunity you coming here. And yesterday I was at a diversity conference, and the chair asked that maybe somebody attend. So we appreciate you taking your time out and coming here. And I would wear this hat, but my grandfather said. My grandfather says that it causes baldness. So thank you.
Well, I just thought I would ask if you could explain, because I'm certain that you can do it best, the difference between Latino and Hispanic, because they're often used interchangeably and incorrectly.
That's a tough question because there are many different variations and thoughts about that. I don't know that I could give you the sociological correct answer, but I would say this. Hispaniola was the area of the islands in the Caribbean and spread into Mexico as Columbus and others migrated here. Hispanic is a derivative of that and comes from that. Latino is more of Latin America and any person from the greater region of Central and South America, if you will.
Mm-hmm. The other way that it has been explained to me is that Hispanic is more related to language and the Caribbean, and Latino is related to geography, to the continent of Latin America, and so Brazil is not Latino because it is not. It is Latino, but not Hispanic, because it is Portuguese, right. And so that to be Hispanic, you have to be a Spanish-speaking nation.
Well, there
to
would be some who
Latino.
would contend that those who are from Venezuela do not speak Spanish because they speak the Spanish Castellano, which
right.
is much different. And having traveled extensively throughout the Americas for business purposes, I can tell you that when I go to Venezuela, it takes me a little bit of time to pick up on the nuances of the language as compared to being in Colombia and other parts of South America and Central America.
Anyway, very rich cultural background in the Americas, both the Caribbean and Latin America, and very diverse within it. So we appreciate your coming, and I hope we have some events we can tell people about in terms of celebrations for Cinco de Mayo that might be going on even through the next weekend. But we'll roll those at the end of the day and encourage people to celebrate the cultural diversity amongst us. So,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is a presentation proclaiming May 2011 as National Preservation Month in Clackamas County. And we have Linda Price here from Land Use and Zoning to explain this proclamation.
Good morning. Yes, we're here today to proclaim May as Historic Preservation Month, and I have Todd Iceland, who's the chairman of the Historic Review Board that looks at historic properties throughout Clackamas County. He's on that board that reviews them when people try and do alterations to keep their historic integrity intact. So I'll just leave it to you.
We'd like to proclaim May 20th National Preservation Month, or May 2011 National Preservation Month in Clackamas County. Whereas historic preservation is an effective tool for managing growth and sustainable development, revitalizing neighborhoods, fostering local pride, and maintaining community character while enhancing livability. And whereas historic preservation is relevant for communities across the nation, both urban and rural, and for Americans of all ages, all walks of life, and all ethnic backgrounds. And whereas it is important to celebrate the role of history in our lives and the contribution made by dedicated individuals in helping to preserve the tangible aspects of the heritage that has shaped us as a people. And whereas celebrating America's treasures is the theme for National Preservation Month 2011, co-sponsored by Clackamas County and the National Trust for Historic Preservation. And whereas Clackamas County fully supports the purpose of historic preservation through the comprehensive zoning and planning ordinance. And now, therefore, we, the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim May 2011 as National Historic Preservation Month and call upon the people of our county to join their fellow citizens across the United States in recognizing and participating in this special observance.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move we proclaim May 20th, May 2011 National Preservation Month in Clackamas County.
I'll second that.
It's been moved by Commissioner Bernard and seconded by Commissioner Savas that we proclaim May 2011 as National Preservation Month in Clackamas County. Is there any discussion on this item? One particular.
We would also like to, just another word, if you may.
Sure.
We'd like to encourage everyone in the county and anyone that may be watching this to tour historic sites found in Oregon and take the opportunity this month to attend educational events, which are going on throughout the state, featuring aspects of history throughout the state. And I think that's an important opportunity this month for people interested.
Yes, I appreciate that. And Clackamas County, of course, is integral part of the history of the West. It is the end of the Oregon Trail. The oldest city in Oregon is where we are sitting at the moment, Oregon City. And their history abounds in many, across Clackamas County especially, and not just the post-European settlement, but the Native American history as well. So I am happy to call for the vote. All those in favor of this signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and we're officially proclaimed, and we're now in National Preservation Month. So
Thank you very
thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the list is, on the agenda is citizen communication. I have 3 cards for citizen communication today. The first one is Richard Langdon. And if you could come forward and give your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes on the clock.
Thank you. Please forgive the water. I've got something going on in my throat.
Uh-oh.
I apologize.
seem to also.
I've written this down just because I don't know, my throat will get through there. Anyway, my name is Richard Langdon, 605 Northwest Skyline Boulevard, Portland, Oregon, and I own real estate in Clackamas County and operate a business in Clackamas County. Didn't really want to, but I'm doing it. I'm a member of a group of folks with food carts and or property owners with food carts on them. And I've been asked to speak for that group. I'd also like to thank you for taking the time to listen to us. I'll just read the rest of this.
Just be sure you're.
I'm
being
sorry,
picked
can you
up
hear
by
me with the mic?
So,
Oh, there you
so
go.
it's mostly for the TV audiences.
Yeah, I understand. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. I have worked and developed property in Clackamas County for over 35 years. And I've read code and abided by it for the same period. I have always taken the high road. My experience in the past with Clackamas County staff has been a pleasure, with very helpful and innovative support and assistance from staff. At this point, I think I'd like to just read the petitions that I'd like to turn in today relating to the lack of a food cart code in Clackamas County, if I may. Let me know if I'm running out of time.
Well, the clock is up there, so you can tell.
Yes, I
You
know.
can-
Mobile food cart petition for Clackamas County. We ask that Clackamas County, having no zoning code or policy regulating mobile food carts, allow mobile food carts to operate without interference from the Planning and Zoning Department. We also encourage Clackamas County, with the assistance of mobile food cart operators and landowners with mobile food carts on them, to adopt a mobile food cart policy or code that encourages their use in our communities. Because I think that was written that way because it absolutely falls right into our urban idea of our sustainability code update that we recently approved, because it gets people out of their cars and it gets people to walk. I'll turn these in. Right now we have in excess of 400 signatures. I have 336 with me today, and I'll show up next week with additional ones in the following week. Let me go on here briefly, not too much more. Let me say first that the Clackamas County Health Department, as we've worked through these issues about this lack of a code, has been fantastic. Organized, complete professionals. They're great people, the health department. Our experience with the zoning and planning staff on this issue has, to say the least, extremely frustrating over a long period of time. Some of the staff persists in either flip-flopping on the issue of the existence of a mobile food cart code or just insisting that a code exists, insisting upon them. They insist that all mobile food carts that have not gone through some land use process are illegal and in violation of a code. And they insist they will not remove any alleged code violations, in spite of the lack of a code. Our group is asking that the board help. 2 more paragraphs. Thank you. Our group is asking that the board help remedy this matter. Given the time constraints at this meeting, I would also ask that the board allow time for a work session with our group so we may fully share our concerns and get your input and answers and question and answer any questions that that may arise as you look at this matter. I will deliver more signed petitions as the weeks go past on the 10th, or on every Thursday, as well as any documents that may be appropriate. That's it. Thanks you for your time.
Thank you.
Can I
Thank
give these
you.
to you?
Yeah, if you could turn those in and,
Thanks. Thanks for the extra time, too.
oh, yeah. The next one I have is also on the food cart issue. This is Kevin Collins.
Good morning. I'm Kevin Collins. I own Hog Wild Barbecue. Commissioners, what I want to do this morning is just, reiterate what Richard Langdon has brought forward is to offer some insight on what I've personally been going through for the last 7 years with Clackamas County, in unincorporated Clackamas County. And obviously, there's not enough time this morning, so what I've done is put together a timeline that I'd like to hand out for you commissioners to look at if possible. And then if there's any other questions, we could do that at a later date. The story that I have is just so strange and bizarre, and I've learned way more than I ever wanted to learn with this process, just putting together for a food cart, in Clackamas County. And I agree, the health department has been wonderful to work with. The planning department, though, on the other hand, my experience there is frightening. And there's just not enough time for me to go into that here. So what I'd like to do is have this handed out, and then I come back at another date. Does that
Okay,
work?
that's entirely appropriate.
Okay,
You
thanks,
can
guys.
Just turn it in here at the clerk's office. And I would just say this is the first that I've been aware of this as an issue, but it sounds like one of those things that is evolving as food carts become more important all the time, or more ubiquitous, and we're probably just behind the curve in terms of responding, getting up to speed with what the needs are. So,
Well, I think it kind of started with Hog Wild Barbecue.
well, I appreciate
been
you
out there the longest.
bringing the issue forward, and you've both made good suggestions. We'll proceed.
Yeah, I think we recognize the problem is our code doesn't really address this head on.
Right.
And we need,
may
and
need
we've
to
talked a
do
little bit
that.
in the past about that, we really need to have a code that addresses this really emerging type of food operation.
Yes, it's an emergency.
And without addressing it head on, you get lost in the shuffle in between the cracks, and it's hard to get a straight answer. So we recognize we need more precision with that.
And I have personally been asked to be part of putting a code together, and I will gladly do that. But my concern is that I can't really move forward with that help when I've been held in violation of a code that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And as soon as that's addressed, I will be more than happy to lend what I've learned over the past 10 years of operating a food cart
Okay,
with the county.
I appreciate it. Commissioner Bernard.
Well, I understand at our work session that, actually, it was this meeting, wasn't it? That anyone who was in violation, that we weren't pursuing them until we had this resolved. So if somebody is pursuing you for a violation, my understanding at that last meeting was that we were not doing that until we resolved this issue.
Okay, and I understand, I was there and I heard that also, but we still have property that the violation has not been removed, and that affects me. It's not my property, but I've been asked to move to that location, but I was pre-warned that if I moved there, that, how do I say this? It was a very subtle suggestion that it may not work out well for me.
Okay. See what we can do about it.
Okay, thanks, commissioners, thank you.
My comment about this, I think some of these folks have reached out to me, and other folks that are not connected, but have either businesses that vend on a mobile basis or have similar investments in different parts of the county. And some of those folks are very concerned about this issue. And I think that hearing them out would be a good idea. I'd really ask our Board of County Commissioners at least listen to this group, look at the material, give them a chance to make their case before the county commissioners, at least what their experiences are, to help kind of shape this up. It's quite the story. I've heard some of it. But I believe we ought to be, as far as business, a little bit more business-friendly somehow with this, and at least give them a chance to, because they can't do it in 3 minutes, give them a chance to make their case.
Yeah, well, I agree, except that I think we seem to be fairly agreed that we need to do something, so they don't need to make more of a case about we should do something. What we need to do is move right on and do something, which is get a task force together or something, a stakeholder group that would include them to help design a code or give input on how a code might move forward. So, I mean, that would be my suggestion is unless we think we need more convincing that our code is deficient, because I think we've been convinced that we don't have one. So we need to get one, and they should be an integral part of developing that code.
And I'm just urging that more of a collaborative process. I think that as we guide our staff and develop policy, I think it's best that we have a full understanding.
Yeah, that's why we embed them in the process.
We'll be sharing these materials with our staff as well. And we agree. I mean, we need a better approach, a more precise and clear approach for everybody.
Right. Yes. We had similar issues with the dog agility situation, a whole sport field that just has arisen and is not accounted for in the code, and so it's not allowed, and yet we want to allow it, but it's not allowed. So we're trying to work that one out in the legislature. So thank you very much. And we will try to get something rectified here. The other one I have is from citizen input is from John Keeley. And you can come up and give your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Well, it won't take me 3 minutes to enter my complaints. You have a copy of the complaints in front of you, I believe. What started this was in 2007, I was requested by a friend to get a soils permit for building a new house. We accomplished this, and he went to then the planning staff and was told that he could not build a new house because he couldn't partition the property. I lost contact with him then until about 2010, and he asked me to reopen the case if I possibly could, because he'd been turned down completely on building his house, even though he had a septic tank permit. He could not transfer the property. He wanted to deed 2 acres to his son. I told him to follow the procedures, and I'm sure he would get through without any problem. He claimed that he could not do it and hired me to do it. I have spent over $8,000 trying to get this 2 acres conveyed from my friend to his son. In the interim time, he has died, but it's still a problem. I have tried to list for you what your cost being imposed on the transfer of 2 acres from a father to a son, owned in fee simple, without any problem. Planning is $2,300. Soils are $520 for the first hole. Soils Department requires 2 holes to be dug on the lot. I administered this problem for 16 years for Clackamas County. I only used 1 man during that period of time and the soil maps from 1925. You are now using 6 people. You have much better maps of the soils. 90% of the soils in Clackamas County will percolate without any problem. And yet you are charging people, developers, up to $5,000 in essence to obtain a building permit on a piece of property in the unincorporated area of the county. The surveyor asks for $1,800 to look at the partition plat, which is now required in order to convey a piece of property. I was county surveyor for 8 years here, and I used 1 man to investigate subdivisions and partition plat. Well, we didn't have partition plats at that period of time. We had subdivisions. There is absolutely no excuse that I can see where the surveyor charges $1,800. Now, the surveyor has 16 personnel now. They have less partition plats and surveys than I had for 16 years, or per year for 16 years. To me, somebody's not watching the situation. You now have 5 people on the planning, or on the commissioner's staff, plus 3 administrators. You're asking for an increase in salary, and to me, I don't think you deserve it. I think you are not performing your job adequately. I also had 2 other complaints: the lack of control to modify staff actions by the 3 county administrators. I have letters from the assistant county administrators indicating that they really don't have any power to do anything. The power lies within the county commission, and the county commission does not seem to be reacting. There was an article in the Oregonian about 3 weeks ago where people had lost their property due to fire. The planning commission agreed that they could rebuild.
You do need a wrap-up kind of here.
Okay. I would object to the fact that in 32 calls to the county, no one answered the phone. It was all voicemail. It was actually 33. I did one yesterday again. That's all that I have.
Okay. Thank you.
I would hope there would be some reaction. I don't know whether you folks can react effectively or not.
Well, I'd be happy to react to one of your statements. We did not ask for a pay increase, and I personally have no intention of accepting one. It is a board that reviews our salary. We do not ask. It's state law that they do that, and they have suggested that.
Like that.
They have suggested that we take a raise, and we have not discussed it. And actually, the board has one more meeting. So whether you read that in the paper or not, we have not discussed it. And my personal intention is I think we do a fantastic job. But we are also new here. We don't know about all the inner things like you may know from all those
sure
years. And actually, during the budget process, it gives us an opportunity to look at some of the suggestions you have. And if you called me 32 times, I'm sure you'd get me a few times. So be happy to sit down and talk with you anytime.
Okay. I'm
Thanks.
sure you've got other things to do.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is, I'll just say I don't have any more cards, but so I'm presuming we are, and I don't see anyone else in the audience coming. We don't have any discussion items, and that brings us to the consent agenda, and I will ask the clerk to read the consent agenda by title only.
Okay. Under Health, Housing, and Human Services, we have approval of the Housing and Community Development 2011 Action Plan, approval of a construction agreement between Clackamas County and Subcom Excavation and Utilities for street improvements on Juniper Street in the city of Estacada. Approval, under elected officials, we have approval of previous business meeting minutes, approval of a renewal for a secondhand dealer's permit for Michael Nichols, GameStop number 1962, and approval of a renewal for a secondhand dealer's permit for Michael Nichols, GameStop number 2442. Under the Development Agency, we have approval of a contract with Kodiak Pacific Construction, Inc. for Highway 212 Lawnfill Road Connection Project, Phase 2, and approval of Amendment Number 1 to the contract documents with OTAC for engineering consultant services for the Sunnybrook West Extension Project. That concludes the consent agenda.
And I would just remind people that your screen should be showing where you can find this on the website. If you would like to look at the full packet of material on any of these agenda items that you have more interest in, there's the way to access them on the website at Clackamas County website. With that, I would, if there's no comment on the consent agenda items, I would ask for a motion.
Chair Lehan, I move we approve the consent agenda.
I second.
Been moved by Commissioner Savas and seconded by Commissioner Leininger that we approve the consent agenda. Any comment on it? Not any? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously. And that brings us to Commissioner communication. How about Commissioner Savas? We'll go down the line.
Okay, well, I just want to not necessarily respond to the gentleman earlier, but build on what Commissioner Bernard had spoke about the article in the Oregonian. And I believe last year, or every year, that this compensation committee meets and makes a recommendation for elected officials as far as their pay. And I believe last year, the county commissioners declined that increase in pay, and I'm inclined to do the same this year when it comes before me. So with that, that is all I have for communication today.
Commissioner Leininger.
We have made an interesting decision in the last couple of days about the appointment process. I wanted to update people on where we are with the process to appoint a fifth commissioner. We have identified 11 people who are essentially semifinalists, and hopefully on Tuesday we'll be able to winnow that list down to a number of finalists to interview for the position live at a forum somewhat like this one here in this room. It will be televised, and we expect that that process will take place on the evening of May 17th, barring any changes. So we are moving in the direction of finding a successor to Chair Lehan, who started to be the chair and stopped being Commissioner Lehan. And
Position 4.
That's right, position 4. We have some great applicants, though, and I'd like to say to everyone who applied for consideration, thank you for your time and your interest in serving the county, because we are stronger with a wide breadth of people. So thank you.
Appreciate that. Commissioner Bernard.
Farmers markets. This weekend, a lot of farmers markets open. On your screen is a location of all, making sure mine's on there. Milwaukee Sunday Farmers Market, which I know most about, started 13 years ago, and a lot of these same vendors are at all these markets. It's a wonderful way to meet your neighbors, build on relationships. It's also a great place to spend your money because that money stays in the community. There are a lot of food vendors there, and it's very popular and a growing trend, I would say, that people like to buy food within a certain distance from home. I think we used to have vendors that came in from Umatilla, Of course, gas prices probably restrict that, but our vendors, which we have close to 100 of them, come a lot of them from Clackamas County, Washington County, and a few from Multnomah County, as well as Hood River County. So the great thing about them is that it really did create a new market for farmers who find it challenging to survive. And they're probably one of the hardest working groups I know of. I mean, to get up, and for some of them at 4 o'clock in the morning, some of them actually get up and pick the produce or the flowers before they come to the market at 6:30 in the morning and start setting up and probably get home at 6, 7 o'clock at night. We also, a lot of our farmers markets get support from the local community. New Seasons, for example, I know donates to us. We use that money to match, I think they're called Oregon Trail Cards. So people come in, they get $5 worth, and we will match that. I don't believe it's actually $5. A certain amount that they purchase, we'll give them a certain amount back. So thanks to all New Seasons who helps a lot of these. And it's a great opportunity to meet your neighbor. I think in Milwaukee it really changed how the community rebuilt those relationships that maybe are at times strained. Also, it's a great place to meet your old high school, grade school friends. So please visit our farmers market and help support those hardworking farmers throughout Clackamas County and Oregon. So thank you.
I just wanted to kind of build on the National Preservation Month that we just declared, or proclaimed, I guess we'd call it, for Clackamas County. Mentioned that Commissioner Savas and I attended the Clackamas County's Heritage Tree Celebration the other evening and inducted, I believe, 10 trees and groves into the Clackamas County Heritage Tree Program. This is an entirely voluntary program. If you have a tree on your property that you would like to have recognized for its heritage tree status, either because it's connected to history in some way or it's a particularly fabulous specimen of a tree, we would like to hear about it, and you can, if your tree is selected, you will get a plaque to put next to your tree, not on your tree, but next to your tree, proclaiming it as a Clackamas County heritage tree. And we had some fabulous trees and many people who came and spoke with heartfelt emotion about what their trees meant to them. And these were, as I mentioned that evening, many of them were huge specimen trees of their particular species. But it doesn't have to be a huge tree. I serve on the Oregon State Heritage Tree Board. We just inducted one of 2 for the year into the state program, and it was a group of the remnant pear trees from the original Harry and David pear orchard in Medford. And and the state program has many trees that are not big, and you would not necessarily recognize them as driving by as, oh my gosh, look at that tree. But they're significant either because they were important to a pioneer settlement or a particular apple, pear, cherry, whatever, that was important to the culture of the development of Oregon, or in our case, Clackamas County. So for next year's, you might want to be thinking about this. If you have a tree that would qualify, and I will just put out the word for a couple of them that I think it would be nice to find in Clackamas County, and one would be trees that have river scars on them from the old cables from the log rafts especially, but also from tying up boats. we should be able to locate one. We've failed in Wilsonville to be able to locate one, and I don't know. But anyway, it would seem like we could come up with such a tree in Clackamas County. We have a lot of Willamette River frontage, and I'd like to find one of those. The other thing is sometimes you'll find remnants in a tree of an old fence post that tells a story of a farm that's no longer there. So anyway, just to keep in mind. And the second thing regarding, and on the website will tell you how to nominate your tree so that you could also receive a plaque for it and be listed. Second thing is that May is, I think we should, if I were thinking of it earlier, I would have, ought to be proclaimed Pioneer Cemetery Month. It is the month when many of the pioneer cemeteries are trying to get cleaned up in preparation for Memorial Day, which is the biggest event of the year for most pioneer cemeteries. And it is a place where there's a lot of history and the artifacts themselves, the old tombstones and monuments are really a fabulous resource that we have in our community. So there are always jobs to be done at any pioneer cemetery near you. You can usually contact someone who's working on it, everything from trimming bushes and weeds to cleaning up monuments when you have the proper instruction. So anyway, if that's something that interests you, May is a good time, and a lot of places will have activities going on the weekends this month. And with that, if there's no other business before the commission, we are adjourned.